Prime Minister, the issue of children arriving on small boats. Should children in the care of the Home Office have the same protections under the Children Act as those in local authority care?
So, Caroline, I mean, first of all, look, I, the government, everyone takes the welfare of children incredibly seriously, as of course we should. And it's important that when it comes to this policy that we're sensitive and that we get it right. And there's been a lot of thought that's gone into getting it right. And I think we've got a policy that does what we need it to do, which is treats people with decency, treats people humanely, safeguards children's welfare, but also achieves the objectives that we're trying to achieve, which is to break the cycle of these criminal gangs and stop people coming here who shouldn't be coming here, and also some of them tragically dying en route, including children. And I think we've struck the right balance in all of those things.
So was that a no, that there shouldn't be equal protections under the Children's Act?
I think there are a set of, I mean, you probably know this better than me, I think there are a set of very specific laws that we have around corporate parenting that distinguish between the Home Office and local authorities, which you would know better than me. But in all cases, the welfare of children is taken seriously, safeguard is taken seriously, there is support and procedures in place to make sure children are looked after properly in all circumstances.
Thank you. The safeguarding of children is indeed important, and in 2011 the Independent Family Returns Panel was set up to safeguard children in family units who were being removed from the UK. Their role has been disapplied from this coming Friday. So what measures will there be in place to safeguard children who are being removed as part of a family unit?
So, children are not separated from families, and they will be made sure that the facilities for them and the accommodation for them is absolutely appropriate for them.
Who oversight of that?
Well, in the first instance, it would be the Home Office in terms of when people arrive and the provision of those facilities. If you're asking from a legal perspective...
So in 2011, the Home Office brought in a panel specifically to oversee the safeguarding...
Yes. So, I mean, the Home Office can do that itself.
OK, so it no longer needs the Independent Family Returns Panel at all?
No, it's not that it needs it at all. I mean, we've got advice, we've put in place procedures, and the Home Office is perfectly capable of doing that.
OK, where specifically will family groups, so children with their parents who are scheduled for removal, be detained?
In appropriate accommodation for them, and they won't be separated from their families.
How much of that accommodation is currently available?
At the moment, there are a few thousand places and more are being built, and there's a full team at the Home Office that is working on the operationalisation of the bill, and it's one of the things that they're working through to make sure that it's ready at the time the bill is in force.
A few thousand places?
Overall for capacity, but as I said...
For families?
No, overall. But
right, so specifically for families?
I don't have an exact number, but the point is that they will be accommodated specifically in accommodation that's appropriate for them, and children would not be separated from families. No one would want to see that.
But there will be powers to detain children with their families?
The intention of this policy... the policy objective here is not to detain children, but it's important that we don't inadvertently create a policy that incentivises people to bring children who wouldn't otherwise come here. And that's why it's important that it applies equally to families, because otherwise you increase the likelihood that people bring children here. They make very dangerous crossings. I don't think anyone would want to see that. That's not good for children. So the policy should and must apply to families, but it's right that then we then look at families differently as we do, and they should be in accommodation that's appropriate for them, and that those family groups should not be separated. I think that is the right thing to do, because otherwise, you create an incentive for a criminal gang to tell people to bring a child with them when they otherwise wouldn't be. And I don't think that is a good thing. I don't think we want to create a pull factor to make it more likely that children are being making this very perilous journey in conditions that are appalling. I don't think that's the right thing to do. We should not create a system that makes that more likely.
No, I think you're absolutely right. We shouldn't be creating a system that makes that more likely. I'm interested in what measures are going to be put in place to assess vulnerabilities, particularly under those who have protected characteristics. So what measures to ascertain whether women are pregnant, whether people have disabilities, what protections there will be for LGBTQ people?
So, I mean, well, one of the things that you mentioned, first of all, there's age, actually, is the first thing when we talk about children. So I think the first thing is to make sure that we're able to ascertain who are children and need that extra safeguarding. And the Nationality and Borders Act established a new decision-making function in the Home Office, which is referred to as the National Age Assessment Board, which will consist of expert social workers who will conduct things like age assessments on full referral. I think that's a really important thing. That it's not easy, and those things are complex, but it's right that we get those right. And as I said, the powers in the NABA will allow us to do that more properly than, well, we do it properly anyway, but just to do that even more comprehensively than we currently do it.
Will age assessments also be carried out on older people?
I think we have an initial way that we do age assessments that the Supreme Court, I think, unanimously said was lawful. I think the reforms through the NABA aim to make it more comprehensive and more consistent and robust from the outset. As I said, there'll be expert social workers, and we're also considering how scientific age assessment methods could widen the evidence available to decision makers. And I think there's a committee that's also published a report very recently, which the Home Office are currently considering.
So the Home Office's adults at risk policy, which was last updated in November of last year, considered that anyone over the age of 70 would be at greater risk if they were detained. Does that mean that people over 70 will be excluded from the provisions of the illegal migration bill because they would be at greater risk if they were detained?
I haven't seen that report, Caroline. I apologise, so I can't comment on it. I'll happily get back to you on it.
Okay, thank you. A final question from me. So I've been greatly exercised about how we're going to afford protection to those who might have been eligible under the ARAP scheme or the Afghan Citizens Resettlement scheme, should they have not managed to leave Afghanistan at the time of pitting and when the ARAP scheme was in full flow. So what are we going to do to make sure that those people who may well have assisted the UK forces are not going to be removed to Afghanistan, and how are we going to determine them should they arrive here by small boat or have already arrived here by small boat?
So, look, we've already welcomed over 20,000 people across the two schemes we have specifically for those from Afghanistan, ARAP and ACRS. I think on ARAP, I think we're about 12,000, and it's not a capped scheme from memory, and that there are commitments to those specific people that we've made. My understanding is that we have a way to talk to these people and communicate with them, and we in Afghanistan, and then we'll bring them here in a safe and legal way, and also through ACRS. There's three different pathways of that where people are leaving Afghanistan and then will come here as well. But so far, as I said, over 23,000 already, with a plan to keep going. But I think part of actually illustrates the overall issue we've got, in that those are exactly the people who we want to help.
Which is why an Afghan pilot was highlighted in The Independent as having been given notification that he was likely to be removed to Rwanda.
It's hard for me to comment on the individual case, but if you send it to me, I'll happily make sure the Home Office have a look. But I think the general point I'd make is, it's right that we have a migration system and an asylum policy that targets our generosity, our compassion, our resources on the people that are most vulnerable, the people that we determine we want to welcome here, accepting that we're never going to be able to bring everyone here who would like to come here. I think everyone would acknowledge that. So there's always difficult decisions to make. We want to make sure that we do target all of our power, our compassion, our generosity on those who we really want to. And at the moment, what we have is a system where that's not happening, where we have tens of thousands of people coming illegally who are not in that category. When a third of all small boat arrivals last year came from Albania, clearly it's not a system that is targeted on the people who most need our help. And that's a system that I think we probably agree we want to get to. And once we have proper control of our borders, once the bill delivers what we need it to deliver, we're going to be able to do a far better job of having comprehensive, safe and legal routes, and targeting, as I said, our compassion, our generosity, our resources on those who we most want to help. That's the type of country we are. That's what we've done in spades over the last few years in Syria and Afghanistan and elsewhere, and that's what we will always do. But at the moment, our ability to do that is limited by what's happening due to illegal migration.
Is it right that an Afghan female judge or MP who arrives on a small boat should be treated differently to an Afghan female judge or MP who arrived here prior to this legislation?
I think, again, rather than getting into cases, the point is we have to break the cycle of criminal gangs. We have to stop people dying when they are trying to make these dangerous journeys, and we've got to have a system which is fair for everybody, fair for taxpayers, fair on those who emigrate here legally, fair on those who most need our help. And that means we have to have a system which says if you do come here illegally, having crossed through multiple safe countries on your way, then it's reasonable that we detain you and remove you to a safe alternative. Let's just forget, what are we doing here? We are making sure that people are looked after. They will be safe. That will either be in their home country, whether if that's appropriate for them, or Rwanda, or other alternatives down the line. That is a policy which is reasonable, it's fair, and will ensure that we can break the cycle of criminal gangs, continue to welcome refugees here who we want to provide that sanctuary for, and stop people dying needlessly. That is the system that we want to move to, and this is what the bill will deliver.
Thank you.